Picture the worst seat in chess. Across the board sits Alexander Alekhine, the deadliest attacker alive, 1 year from snatching the world crown, and your only job is to survive. Meet Paul Jonna, Dresden, 1926. Jonna opens like a responsible adult, pawn to d4, planting a flag in the center and freeing his pieces. It's the calm, classical start, buttoning your blazer before a duel. Nothing flashy yet, but every master knows the rule: own the middle, own the game. Instantly Alekhine fires back, knight to f6, the most natural move on the board. It leaps toward the center and keeps a beady eye on white's east for square, daring Jonna to overreach. Textbook from a man who basically wrote the textbooks. Out comes the second knight, to f3, guarding the east 5 square and bracing that d4 pawn. Jonna's quietly building a house here, bricks first, fireworks later. Both sides are still being suspiciously polite to each other. Now Alekhine shows his hand, pawn to b6. This is the queen's Indian defense, and the plan is delightfully sneaky. Rather than grabbing the center with pawns, he'll aim a bishop down the long diagonal from b7 and snipe at it from range. A little needle, Jonna's bishop hops to g5, gluing itself to the f6 knight and pinning it to the queen behind. That knight can't budge without exposing Her Majesty. Just a small irritation to gum up black's smooth setup. Right on cue, the fiancé bishop slides to b7, completing the queen's Indian dream machine. From there it stares clean across the board at e4 and beyond, leaning on white's center without lifting a finger. Alekhine's contraption is humming. Pawn to e3 for Jonna, modest, solid, faintly sleepy. It frees the f1 bishop and keeps the center bolted tight. Not the boldest try going, but the whole plan is clear as day: don't poke the bear, just stay uneaten. Mirroring nicely, Alekhine plays e6, opening his own f8 bishop and shoring up the d5 and f5 squares. Solid as a bank vault. Both players keep saying after you while quietly loading their pieces for the brawl to come. Jonna's bishop swings to d3, lining up on the diagonal that points dead at h7, exactly where black's king is about to move in. It's an attacking address with a lovely view of the enemy monarch's future front door. Tap, tap, pawn to h6, Alekhine nudging the g5 bishop. Decision time, pal. Stay and risk a swap, or retreat. It's a tiny, bishop-bothering poke that looks like nothing and quietly bosses the piece around. Refusing to flinch, Jonna keeps the pin, bishop to h4, holding the squeeze on that f6 knight. The needle stays in. He's in no hurry to trade, he just wants black mildly uncomfortable for a good while longer. Bang, Alekhine cracks the center open with c5, hammering at the d4 pawn. This is the thematic queen's Indian punch: challenge the middle, pry open lines, and let those long-range bishops finally breathe. The polite phase is officially done. Time to find cover. Jonna castles kingside, king sliding to g1, the rook hopping to f1 and eyeing the central files. Smart housekeeping. You don't go bear hunting with your king loitering in the open doorway. Calmly, Alekhine drops the bishop back to e7, snapping the pin and prepping to castle. The f6 knight breathes again. It's the quiet click of a man freeing his pieces and tidying the desk before the real scrap starts. Developing the last knight, Jonna sends it to d2, a flexible perch from which it can later spring to f3, e4, or c4 depending on the weather. No commitments, all options. Very Swiss. Pawn to d6 for Alekhine, restrained but sturdy, bracing the center and keeping the east 5 square in his back pocket. He's coiling slowly, like a man who knows he's the most dangerous attacker in the room and feels zero rush to prove it. Wiring it all together, Jonna's queen steps to e2, connecting the rooks and quietly backing a future e4 break. The army's holding hands now. It's the unglamorous plumbing that lets the big punches actually land later. And at last Alekhine castles, king to g8, safe behind his pawns. Both monarchs are tucked in bed. Development's basically a tie, which means the real chess, the scheming and the knife work, kicks off right about now. Brick by brick, Jonna plays pawn to c3, cementing his d4 point and giving the center a concrete base. It's a brick, not a bullet, but big games are won by people who remember to lay bricks. Patience, always patience. Cheeky one here, Alekhine's knight gallops to h5, right to the edge. A knight on the rim is grim, the saying goes, but he's got a plan. He's eyeing the f for square and wants to swap off white's annoying bishop. Madness with a method. Taking the deal, Jonas' bishop captures on e7, swapping the bishops and simplifying. Less clutter, fewer things to calculate. When you're holding the great Alekhine at arm's length, every trade is one less weapon he can swing. Alekhine recaptures with the queen, queen takes e7, the natural retake, structure intact. No drama, just bookkeeping. The queen settles in comfortably, ready to be flung into the fray the instant a target pops up. Pawn to a4, Jonna grabs queenside space and plants a seed. The idea, maybe push to a5 later, maybe drop a bishop into a6 to harass black's pieces. A small land grab with options bundled in. Bringing up the rear, Alekhine plants the knight on c6, leaning on the d4 pawn and getting his last piece into the fight. Everyone's off the bench now. The position's level, but level against Alekhine has a nasty habit of bursting into flames. Watch this, Jonas' bishop slips to a6, offering to trade off black's prized b7 bishop, the crown jewel of the entire Queen's Indian. Rip out that long-range sniper and Alekhine loses a huge chunk of firepower. Sneaky, and rather good. Ignoring the bishop for a beat, Alekhine slams a rook onto d8, seizing the open central file. Rooks love open files like cats love sunbeams. He's stacking pressure down the middle while white faffs about on the wing. Now Jonna pulls the trigger, bishop takes on b7, finally removing that monster. The long diagonal falls silent. Yes, he gives up his own bishop, but trading your good piece for the opponent's better one is a bargain you snap up every time. Recapturing, Alekhine's queen takes b7, and now Her Majesty sits on that gorgeous diagonal, glaring at white's kingside and the g2 square by Jonas' king. The sniper bishop's gone, but the queen happily takes over the lease. Rook to d1 for Jonna, contesting the central file black's been hogging. 2 rooks, 1 file, classic tug-of-war. He simply won't hand Alekhine the middle of the board for free. Possession is 9/10 of the d file. Back it comes, Alekhine returns the knight from the rim to f6, job done, re-centralizing toward e4 and d5. The grim rim horse has earned its pay and rejoins polite society. Everything points inward again. Finally Jonna throws the punch he's been winding up, pawn to e4, claiming the full center and grabbing space. The board begins to open, and open boards mean faster pieces and costlier mistakes. Temperature, rising. Repositioning, Alekhine lifts the rook to d7, bracing his pieces and eyeing a future doubling of heavy guns on the file. He's circling, probing, hunting the soft spot. Against a careful defender, you just keep asking questions until he flubs one. Push! Pawn to e5, Jonna gobbling more space and shoving the f6 knight aside. The center cracks wide. This is gutsy stuff. He's not merely surviving Alekhine, he's elbowing right back into him. Snap, Alekhine takes on e5, prizing open the d file where his rooks lurk. Lines are flying open everywhere, and an open board is precisely where a tactical sorcerer wants to live. Seatbelts, everyone. Knight takes e5 for Jonna, and what a square that is. From e5 the horse forks black's pieces, eyeing the d7 rook and the c6 knight at once. A big beefy steed parked in the board's heart. Suddenly it's white making threats. Slick defense, Alekhine's rook glides to d5, dodging the fork, centralizing, and attacking the e5 knight straight back. Target becomes attacker in a single hop. This is the legend at work, even defending, the man is throwing punches. Snatching material, Jonas' knight takes on c6, lopping off black's knight before any rook tricks can fire. Clean capture, no fuss. He's playing like a man defusing a bomb, snip the right wire, breathe slow, don't stare at the timer. Even it up, Alekhine's queen takes c6, restoring material and keeping that queen prowling the long diagonal. It's all roughly level, same pawns, same pieces. But level is a fragile word when the other guy is Alexander Alekhine. Pawn takes c5 for Jonna, swiping a pawn and rattling the queenside structure. He's nibbling. In dry, balanced spots like this, one pawn can be the entire story, or absolutely nothing at all. Let's find out which. And back level, Alekhine's b6 pawn takes c5, the dust settling once more. Now there's a lonely c5 pawn to babysit. Both sides keep circling a knife-edge position, waiting for somebody to wobble. Reeling it back, Jonna returns the knight to f3, regrouping and keeping things tidy. No reckless lunges, just calm repositioning. He's playing the long game, content to hold the rope and let Alekhine tire himself out. Switching wings, Alekhine swings a rook to b8, leaning on white's queen side and that loose b2 pawn. He's testing a new window now, like a burglar trying every latch in the house. One of them might just be open. Rook takes d5 for Jonna, trading a pair of rooks to lighten the load. Fewer pieces, fewer dangers, the defender's golden rule. Each swap drains a little more venom from Alekhine's attack. Simplify, simplify, survive. Into the center, Alekhine's queen takes d5, planting itself where it rakes the board every which way. A centralized queen is a happy queen. The pieces keep thinning out, but Her Majesty just grows bossier by the move. Home to e5 goes the knight, Jonna reoccupying his favorite outpost, that lovely central square no black pawn can ever chase away. It's the kind of stable, bullying knight defenders dream about. From here it stares black down and keeps the peace. Sliding over, Alekhine puts the rook on d8, reclaiming the open file and keeping the pressure dripping. He simply won't let go. It's a slow-motion arm wrestle now, both players leaning in, neither giving an inch on that central highway. Knight to c4 for Jonna, hopping to fresh squares where it eyes d6 and pesters black's setup. The horse stays busy, busy, busy. Keep your pieces active and Alekhine never gets a clean run at the king. Call it defense by distraction. Reloading, Alekhine pulls the queen back to b7, regrouping on the long diagonal and watching b2. He's quietly rearranging the furniture before the next assault. With this man, the calm moves are usually the scary ones. Back to d1 for Jonna's rook, contesting the central file once more. That file's now the most fought-over patch of dirt on the board. He's matching Alekhine step for step, refusing to blink. Answering in kind, Alekhine's rook returns to d5, active and central, daring white to do something about it. The tension's been simmering forever now, pieces glaring, nobody cracking. It feels like a position one tiny slip from detonating. Oh here it is, the wobble. Jonna's knight leaps to e3, hitting the d5 rook, but it abandons his own back rank. The calm fix was rook to e1, quietly defending everything and bolting the door shut. Instead the door swings wide open, and Alekhine never needs a second invitation. Slam! Alekhine's rook crashes down to d1, snatching the rook with check. The king has to deal with it this instant, and Jonna's careful fortress just sprang a very loud leak. This is the moment the great attacker has patiently waited for. Forced to respond, Jonna's knight grabs back on d1, recapturing the rook and plugging the check. Materially it's still even, but the damage is positional. His pieces are tangled and Alekhine's queen is about to run wild. The defender's calm is officially cracking. Queen to b3 for Alekhine, swooping in to attack the d1 knight and lean on the b2 pawn at the same time. 2 threats, 1 move, the hallmark of a queen smelling blood. Jonna suddenly juggling problems on both sides. Counter-punching, Jonna shoves his pawn to a5, trying to make his own queenside pass a count. It's a you attack, I push a deal, a flat-out race. Brave, a bit reckless, but under fire, counterplay beats sitting still and getting walloped. Gliding over, Alekhine's queen slides to a4, eyeing the d1 knight down the diagonal and pestering that a5 pawn. The queen's everywhere at once now, pinging from target to target like a wasp in a jam jar. Jonna can't swat it. Onward, Jonna pushes the pawn to a6, ramming his passer deeper into black's half. He's playing chicken with Alekhine, my pawn versus your attack, let's see who flinches. The kind of stubbornness that either saves the game or loses it spectacularly. Centralizing, Alekhine's knight bounds to d5, a gorgeous square smack in the middle from which it threatens to leap into e3 or f4. The pieces are gathering around white's position like guests at a roast. And Jonna is the roast. Making a little air, Jonna plays pawn to g3, giving his king a breathing hole and covering the f for square. Tidying up the back porch while the storm gathers. A small, sensible move, though against Alekhine, sensible often isn't enough. Pawn to c4 for Alekhine, jamming his own passer forward and grabbing space on the queen side. Now both sides have runners trying to reach the end of the board. It's a foot race with queens refereeing, and one slip ends it. Finally freeing the knight, Jonas sends it to e3, attacking that bossy d5 horse and the c4 pawn. The cornered piece springs back to life. He's untangling, slowly, trying to trade off Alekhine's most active attackers and calm the seas. Trading happily, Alekhine's knight takes on e3, swapping the horses and dragging white's queen out of position. Every exchange peels away another of Jonas' defenders, and the attackers perfectly content to simplify toward a winning grind. Snip, snip. Taking it back, Jonas' queen lands on e3, restoring the count but sitting a touch passively. He's hanging on by his fingernails, materials level, yet Alekhine's queen and pawns boss the whole board. Grim, sweaty defending, pawn grabbing, Alekhine's queen swoops to a 6 and gobbles white's proud passer. So much for the big race, the runner's been eaten at the finish line. Now black's snagging material, and Jonas' dream of counterplay is quietly going up in smoke. Activating, Jonas' queen darts to c5, hitting the c4 pawn and trying to stir up trouble of his own. If he's going down swinging. The queen goes hunting, because passive defense against Alekhine is just slow-motion drowning. Check! Alekhine's queen swings all the way back to a 1, raking the back rank and pinning Jonas' king down. The hits keep coming. Every move, black asks another nasty question, and white has to find the only safe answer or fall apart. Stepping up, Jonas' king strolls to g2, calmly sidestepping the check. The monarch takes a little walk into the fresh air. He's dodging the raindrops one by one, hoping the storm runs out of water before he runs out of squares. Munching another, Alekhine's queen takes the b2 pawn, pocketing more material as it cruises around white's position. The queen is feasting. Pawn by pawn, black is tilting the balance, and Jonas' hopes are getting thinner by the second. Grabbing one back, Jonas' queen snaps up the c4 pawn, clawing toward equality. He's trading blows, snatching pawns of his own to keep the material close. It's a scrappy, pawn-grabbing brawl now, exactly the messy chaos a defender prays for. Pushing again, Alekhine sends his last queenside pawn to a 5, a fresh passer making a break for glory. The board's turning into a pawn obstacle course. Black still holds the edge, and that little runner could become a very big problem. Back to the middle, Jonas' queen leaps to c6, eyeing checks and black's loose pawns from a commanding post. The queen turns firefighter, hosing down threats and scouting for perpetual check escape hatches. Survival mode, fully engaged. Supporting the runner, Alekhine's queen drops to a 2, shepherding that a 5 pawn toward promotion. He's trying to convert his edge into a touchdown. The plan's simple: shove the pawn, dodge the checks, and turn a small lead into a full point. Racing back, Jonas pushes pawn to c4, launching his own passer up the board. It's a 2-pawn drag race with queens screaming alongside. Whoever promotes first, or lands the first knockout check, takes the cake. Pure adrenaline now. Floor it, Alekhine pushes his pawn to a 4, runner answering runner. Both passers are sprinting and neither side dares slow down. It's the chess version of 2 trains on the same track, both refusing to break. Something has to give. From afar, check, Jonas' queen zips to a 8, harassing black's king and buying precious time. He's wielding checks like brake pads, slowing Alekhine's juggernaut 1 nudge at a time. Keep the king busy, keep the pawn from queening, that's the whole plan. Sidestepping, Alekhine's king tucks to h7, calmly walking out of the check. The monarch dodges and the march goes on. Black just shrugs off the annoyance and keeps his eyes on the prize, that pawn 1 step closer to a new queen. Another jab, Jonas' queen swings to e4 with check, central and stinging. He's stitching together a net of checks, hoping to harass forever and never let Alekhine breathe. If he can keep poking with no end in sight, it's a draw by perpetual. Blocking it out, Alekhine drops pawn to f5, calmly interposing to kill the check. He plugs the gap with a pawn and stands his ground. But every pawn that moves near a king loosens the walls a little, and that could come back to bite. Pouncing, Jonas' queen grabs the e6 pawn, snatching material while delivering its checks. 2 birds, 1 queen, defend and dine at once. He's clinging to the position with everything he's got, scrounging pawns to keep the game from tipping over. Repositioning, Aлекhine's queen slides to c2, regrouping to keep the a-pawn rolling and the threats alive. He's still pressing, still probing, still hunting that elusive knockout. The attacker just keeps leaning, but Jonah's defense stubbornly refuses to crack. Hurrying back, Jonah's queen swings to a6 to blockade and babysit that dangerous a-pawn. The firefighter rushes to the most urgent blaze. He can't win this, but if he keeps plugging every leak, he just might not lose it either. Cracking on, Alekhine pushes pawn to f4, prying at the squares around white's king and keeping the pot boiling. He won't let the position go quiet. Every little pawn lever is another chance for the attacker to find a way through the maze. Plowing forward, Jonah pushes his pawn to c5, dragging his own passer ever closer to glory. He's still in the race, still dreaming of a new queen. It's now a question of nerve, who blinks, who promotes, who lands the final blow first. Jab, Alekhine's queen darts to e4, check, poking at white's king from the center. The needling simply won't stop. He keeps testing, keeps probing for one crack where the checks turn from nuisance into knockout. Jonah has to stay flawless. Plugging it, Jonah blocks with pawn to f3, shutting the check with a calm into position. He keeps finding the one move that holds. It's high wire defending, one slip and the whole thing collapses, but so far, his balance is dead steady. Round it comes, Alekhine's queen returns to c2, check, raking white's king again. Round and round the checks go. The position's repeating, the queens are waltzing the same steps, and you can almost hear a draw clearing its throat in the corner. Strolling on, Jonah's king ambles to h3, calmly stepping out of the latest check. The monarch's getting his daily steps in. He just keeps walking the tightrope, sidestepping each jab, waiting for Alekhine to finally run out of meaningful checks. Yet another, Alekhine's queen slides to f5 with check, hounding the king from a new angle. The man simply will not quit. He's wringing every last drop out of the position, hunting for that one golden check that finally breaks through. It isn't there. Home to g2 strolls Jonah's king, calmly dodging once more. He's seen this dance and knows the steps cold. Every safe shuffle is another quiet no thank you to Alekhine's attack, and the draw inches nearer with each one. One more time Alekhine's queen swings back to c2 with check, repeating the position yet again. The pattern's now obvious: poke, dodge, poke, dodge. Neither side can break the loop, and the half point is practically waving at both players from across the board. Up to h3 again steps Jonah's king, unbothered, well practiced, perfectly safe. He's basically yawning through these checks now. The fortress holds, the king strolls, and Alekhine's mighty attack has officially run into a brick wall named patience. Easing off, Alekhine's queen drifts to b3, finally stepping out of the check loop to probe somewhere new. But the magic's gone, white's king is safe, the pawns are balanced, and there's just no way through. Even legends hit dead ends. There it is, Jonah answers with queen to e2, calmly offering the trade and shutting the door for good. That's the draw. A Swiss master stared down Alexander Alekhine, 1 year from the world crown, and flat out refused to lose. Sometimes half a point feels like a trophy.